Bing. All right, welcome everyone to our free Q&A and live stream on the critical thinking subjects we've been discussing the last couple of weeks. And it's on Facebook as well, so I need to make sure that's pulled up on my phone just so I can follow any questions might have going on that. Very good. Cool. Glad you guys are here. A couple of you are already signed up for the program, and I'm very grateful for that. So thank you. And some of you are still thinking about it. And I mean, first of all, I'd just like to know, do you guys have any questions about the upcoming program? Is there anything that any questions on top of mind? Otherwise, we can just kind of chat about the sort of stuff we'll be talking about. Questions about anything we talked about last couple of weeks.
Hey, Ian, William here. This is my first time, so I don't know anything about the program or anything that you've done before. So you might want to give a couple of minute sort of here's what we're doing here while we're here.
Yeah,
I
no
just saw your
problem.
Facebook post about you were going to share your wisdom, and that's all I needed to come, get some wisdom share.
All right. Thank you, William. And go Volunteers. And I'm sorry, William, that the Vols and the Old Miss don't get to play in the regular season. Maybe the SEC championship they can
Championship game. It'll be Ole Miss or Texas. We'll see whichever
yeah,
one.
well,
Yeah.
Texas is hook 'em. They look unstoppable. We'll see what happens. All right.
Because
So
they got another Manning.
uh right, Arch between him and Quinn Ewers. Sorry. So yeah, little college football talk there.
Yeah.
The other Ian Foster is my wife Heather, my beautiful wife Heather, who teaches the course with me. So I wanted her to be on as well. So yeah, thank you, William. I appreciate it, because some folks maybe haven't been following all the content for the last couple of weeks. We've been talking a lot about values-based thinking, as I call it. Sometimes I call it values-based thinking. Sometimes I call it bottom-up thinking. So often in society, we tend to start with top-down issues. I think the tax rate should be this. I think the government should fund this. I think this should be legal or illegal. I think, this moral thing is right or this moral thing is wrong. Those to me are all top-down issues, and that to me is backwards. We should be starting foundationally from bottom up. What's our foundation? What are our values? What do we want to accomplish in the world? Because the problem is, if we start from that top-down thinking, these are my positions on all these crazy little issues in society that maybe don't matter that much, we just end up fighting and at loggerheads. We can't communicate, right? Because I'm right and you're wrong, right? I'm right and you're wrong. How do I know that? Because I'm right and you're wrong. And it's just that simple, right? Of course, it's not that simple. Some of you guys know it, but it feels that simple. But you always feel right. Even when you're wrong, you feel right. How do I know that? Because if you felt wrong, you wouldn't feel right. But sometimes we're wrong, and you don't know it till after the fact. So feeling right and feeling wrong feel exactly the same way. I believe X is true. I must be right. How do I know I feel it? And 10 years later, you look back and realize, oh, geez, I was wrong about that. But boy, did I feel right. Okay, sugar, come on. Oh boy. All right. Puppy wants to be on. He wants puppy energy on this call real bad. We'll see if we get some kitty cats too. But he really wants the puppy energy on this call. So I want to get away from that top-down issue-focused thinking, and I want us to start really focusing on the bottom-up stuff. Starting with a foundation. What kind of world do we want to see and live in? What are our values? What are the main things we want to accomplish? And my lovely wife and I, we have traveled the country in our van with a bed in the back. And from California to New York to Florida and everything in between, we have met a lot of people, right, Heather? And do some of those people disagree with us on a lot of the issues? Right? But then what happens? We talk to them and we listen to them, and what do I find out? They want to put food on the table. They want a better lives for their kids. They want to have abundance in their life. They want to have love and healing in their life. Well, guess what? I'm on board with that. Right? Has that been your experience, Heather, when we talk to oh, there's Samson too. We have another kitty cat. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's been our experience, right? We can disagree on all the top level issues, but we find out when we travel the country and we stop at rest stops and restaurants and bars and hotels on our way to one place to the other. Come on. I know.
Yeah, super nice people. And they're always surprised that we're from California.
Yeah, right. And why are they surprised? Because we don't go in there talking about top level issues. We go in there talking about values. And they think, well, you're just like us. You must be from Arkansas too. You must be from Nebraska too. And then they're shocked when they find out we're from California. But we went in there talking about fundamental values, putting food on the table, a better life for your kids, love and healing, taking care of your neighbors. It turns out everybody agrees on that stuff.
Right.
Shocking. And so we're talking a lot. Our upcoming program is all about finding those fundamental values we agree on. What are the foundations we can agree on? And then how do we use our intuition, our integrity, our basic logic and skepticism to advance those values together? Rather than arguing about what the tax rate should be on capital gains, why don't we all focus on making sure like children don't go hungry, right? We can all agree on that, I would hope. If you don't, you don't, and that's okay. I literally don't judge you for that. But that's, that's kind of what we're talking about here. Does that make sense, William? Does that help a little bit? And a lot of how we get there, we've been talking about starting with the idea of saying, I don't know. You have to start with your own ignorance. If you start with thinking, I know everything, you're just stuck where you are. That's it. And then you're at loggerheads with everybody. You have to start with your own ignorance with stuff. So this is one of my favorite examples. I call it jelly bean thinking. You guys heard of jelly bean thinking? All right. I got a jar of jelly beans right here. Actual jar, Jelly Bellies. Right.
Costco, don't you love it?
From Costco. Yeah. Not from the factory. Well, from the factory to Costco, but they're Jelly Belly jelly beans. All right. In fact, we live down the road from the factory, which is a great tour if you're in Northern California. The factory is a lot of fun. All right. Do you guys know how many jelly beans are in this jar? Do you guys know? Does anybody know how many jelly beans are in this jar? Nobody has some shaking heads, right? Why don't you know? Shouldn't you know things, right? Why don't you know how many jelly beans are in this jar? William, because you haven't counted it, right?
I haven't counted, and I don't think it's important. It's not like, it's not a quintessential sort of,
Oh,
why am I here sort
yeah.
of
Now,
existential question. So
I love that, William. Let's say it was existential. Let's just hypothetically stretch our minds and say this was super important and you're guessing this right affected people's lives. Do you know
I
how
would
many
pay
jelly
more
beans?
attention
You
and
might
I
pay
would
more
try and
attention,
count.
but how do you, I mean, maybe you could measure the exact volume and maybe you could figure out the average number of jelly beans in a volume. But what would that get you? Would that get you an absolute number or just a best guess?
Best guess.
Best guess, right? The
Yeah.
ultimate answer is you don't know how many jelly beans are in this jar. Now,
Well,
what if I told you the number of jelly beans in this jar is not important, but there's either an odd number or an even number? Can we agree on that? Does everybody agree?
yeah,
By definition, right? There's either an odd number or an even number in this jar. By definition, it's axiomatically true. It's like saying a triangle has three sides, right? So, anybody know, is it odd or even?
Flip a coin.
Flip a coin, right? You could flip a coin. And what we have here is a true dichotomy, right? Branislav is guessing. Good job, Branislav. 264. Now, don't mind Branislav. He's on drugs because he's just out of the hospital. Branislav, I'm just messing with you, of course, right? Yeah, you could flip a coin, right? But it must be odd or even by definition. That's definitionally true. Every number is odd or even, right? So I'm giving you a true dichotomy. In a lot of cases, we talk about, the false dichotomy, fallacy, and lots of stuff. This is a true dichotomy. But do we know whether it's odd or even without dumping them out? Now, I'm not going to dump them out all over because the cats will get to them and I don't want to have to deal with that, right?
And we don't want to open it because you'd eat them all.
Because I would, yeah, right now they are sealed. This is a new sealed container. If it were open, my mindset would go to, oh boy, they're going to go bad. I better eat them. Right? You guys ever, yeah. And what is that? That's another fallacy. Do you know what fallacy that is?
Sunk cost.
Yeah, William. Very good. That's the sunk cost fallacy. If this were open right now and they were
Mhm.
starting to get stale and bad, I'd think, oh shit, I spent real money on this. But the money, where's the money, William?
The money is it's the next money. Whatever you spend it on, it's equally opportunity. You don't have to spend it
Exactly.
on the
Yeah.
stuff you've already got.
Yeah. The money I spent on this, where did it go?
It's already spent. It's already
Already
gone.
spent. It's gone.
Yeah.
That would be a sunk cost fallacy. Very good, right? If it were open, I'd think, shit, I have to eat them. Now, of course, I, like many people, am very susceptible to the sunk cost fallacy. Even though I know that fallacy, I still do it. This is why I have not opened it. Because the moment I opened it, I'll think, uh-oh, better eat them. And, you know, not great for my health.
You already paid for them, so now you're obligated.
Now I'm obligated, right? You know,
Yep.
now I'm obligated. I already paid for it. It's done.
Yep.
Of course, I'm not obligated because if I don't put it in my body, I don't get all that sugar in my body.
That's right.
Right?
So, Ian, can I back up for just a couple of minutes
Please.
here?
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of this 30-year-old book. It's one of 10 I've got in the office here. It's dog-eared and all this. So, that being said, I'm being proactive, habit number one, because I'm here. But habit number two is, what is the end in mind that you have for this series and program? And then how long does it go? Is it a half hour, hour? Again, please forgive me. It's my first time.
No, that's totally fine, William. And it's great to see you because we've been able to chat a lot, but not as much as we probably both would like. You know, we haven't connected as much. So yeah.
That's coming.
Yeah, so today is very open-ended. So today we're just, you know, literally today we're staying on as long as it takes. If people keep hopping on, today's popcorn style, right? There is no agenda today other than to answer questions and help folks out, right? So today's not the real agenda day. We've done the webinars and all that. Today's to help fence sitters and people with questions. So today's open-ended popcorn style. So if you need to hop off, you hop off. More people will hop on. We're just going to hang out and see what happens. As far as the program itself, the program that's running this week, the welcome and orientation call is tomorrow, and it's a 10-week live Q&A program plus 20 pre-recorded instructional videos. And the ultimate goal of the program is decision making that you can apply in your business and in your relationships and in healing society. We're talking about ultimately decision making. We're talking about integrating your intuition, your integrity, your values, logic, skepticism, and the real secret sauce is doing it all in community. Because I could send you guys 100 pre-recorded videos on all this stuff. Honestly, that doesn't do you no good unless you get together in the community. And we have a bunch of people already in the community, already signed up. Alice is in, Brian's in, glad to have you guys in. So we're already, you know, we're forming the community, we're getting together, and we start the welcome call tomorrow. And so we do this in community because it has to be done in a safe space, and especially in a safe space with people who disagree with you is the best way to do it, right? Because then we get to practice interacting and not fighting over tax rates and whether this should be legal or that should be legal, or, you know, we get to practice finding those common values together. So we have a pretty diverse community forming. We have people I would describe as progressive in there. We have people I would describe as conservative bordering on MAGA in there. But that, again, that's the whole point, is the diverse community where we can learn all this together and come out with a decision-making process and a holistic mode of thought that helps us attract more clients, serve them better, make more money, improve our relationships, right? Because we all want to be able to go to Thanksgiving and not fight with Uncle Joe. Wouldn't that be great? You guys know what I mean, right? It would be great if we could go to Thanksgiving or Christmas this year and not fight with people. Wouldn't it be great if we could go to Thanksgiving and Christmas and say, hey, Uncle Joe, I'd like to talk about, you know, tell me what's important to you. Rather than saying, Uncle Joe, you're stupid because you voted for Kamala, or you voted for Trump, or you voted for RFK, or you did, rather than any of that, couldn't we just go to Uncle Joe at Thanksgiving or Christmas and say, Uncle Joe, I'd like to learn more about what's important to you. And how can we make that happen? And Uncle Joe's probably going to say things like, I think families, you know, need some help getting along in these hard times. Well, great. Let's start there. Right. And this goes back to my days in politics. I worked for elected Republicans and I worked for elected Democrats. Now, the times, this was before the times were quite as polarized as they are now. They were somewhat polarized. But having worked for both parties, I saw firsthand what happened when I went next door and hung out with folks and had lunch with them and found common values and sponsored legislation together. And when we reached across the aisle and sponsored legislation, do you think we accomplished great things? I mean, we did. Got some good stuff done. On the other hand, sometimes the member I work for would say, screw that person, I hate them, they're the other party. Guess what got done then? Right?
Nothing.
Nothing.
So it's a great story. If you don't mind, forgive me again,
Yeah,
first time.
no, William, glad you're here. Do it.
I got a hard stop in 5 minutes at
Yeah.
12:30 Eastern time, my time. So, so the end in mind is you would have, after 8 weeks, because of your wisdom and guidance and leading the team, the group, the participants would have a collaborative communication improvement. In other words, they could be able to take whatever the situation is and say, well, that's very interesting. How can we improve on that, together, as opposed to, you're wrong, you're wrong. So that's the end in mind, correct?
Oh, William, that's great. And in fact, I should, for those of you who don't know, I did not pay William to come on. That's some amazing advice. You phrased it wonderfully, William, and I'm glad you made it. And so, yeah, an incremental improvement in our decision making and our communication with one another that then improve that brings, that helps us in our business and our families and in the effect we're having on the society around us in these nutty times. Right. So yeah, absolutely. I just dropped a link in the chat. There will be follow-up emails too, William.
Okay, great. Thank you. So, forgive me, but I'm going to go on just like 2 minutes.
Do it.
But can I ask one question? It might be for the good of the order. And that is what about, I agree with you on this collaborative, let's figure it out. We've got to have some common ground and let's figure out a way that instead of murder. But at the other hand, if you're just too far out, whatever, and the relationship is not that, like if it's a coaching business or whatever, and you just simply don't want that poison energy there under, it's too short, you just politely disengage. I mean, I'm more of the, it's like what Kennedy and Khrushchev. I'm not going to make a capitalist out of you and I'll make a communist out of me, but we still have to breathe the air and live on the planet. So let's figure out how to not hurt each other. Right.
No,
so
I love that. Yeah.
Thank you. So my thought is, at some point you just have to make a business decision to say, look, I don't care how much money, they might be worth. They're just not worth the irritation, like I don't get it factor, because otherwise you're making yourself crazy and you're poisoning the pond for, all the other good fish you want there.
No, William, that's awesome. And I love the Kennedy Khrushchev. I had never thought of that. That's an amazing metaphor for what we're doing, right? Because those are two guys who like they disagreed on everything, but they also did a little bit of good together, right? I mean, they saved the planet. They almost went to war, but they both had the common value of, hey, let's not destroy the human race. Can we work together on that, right? And so that's a good example. So we talk a lot about disengaging and or not engaging in the first place. We go through lists of things and examples together of signs where when is it not worth engaging? Because they're, either you or the other person or both are simply not equipped to have a productive discussion. In which case, if you're not equipped, if the two of you together are not equipped, because it always takes two to tango, if the two of you together are not equipped to have a productive discussion, the only result is you're raising your blood pressure and you're raising their blood pressure. That's it. That's the only result. So just don't. Right? Or when you get started and you think maybe you engage, we talk about when do you see bad faith arguments in the other person? When do you recognize, of course, bad faith arguments in yourself? Because we all do it. And so let's disengage. When is it not worth the toxicity? When is it not worth the heart attack? When is it not worth the stress? And on the other hand, when is it worth it? Maybe there is some hope to accomplish something, or maybe you're engaging even with the other person. Maybe you're pretty sure because of the signals we talk about, you're not going to get anywhere with them, but maybe the audience watching is going to get something from it. Sometimes I will engage with people when I know that that person and myself are not equipped for a good faith discussion with one another, but there are people watching who might get something from it. So we go through that. in detail. There's going to be a whole call about that in the course, quite literally. Yeah. So I
All
love
right,
that.
last
Thank you,
thing.
William.
Thank you, William. Ian, then I'm gonna scoot. So I looked at your Kajabi program, and I scrolled halfway, and towards the end there, is that you with hair? Is that a picture of you with hair and your
That
lovely
was
wife?
me. Well, that was me with less hair.
Okay,
Yeah, my hair now is all pulled back. It's
all right.
now halfway down my back. That was me with less hair. Yeah.
Is that you and Heather though? Is that
That's us.
lovely?
Yeah.
Okay.
She looks just as beautiful. I've gotten old and craggly since then, but of course she looks exactly the same because that's how it works. So yeah,
My hair was lighter back then.
it was.
I don't go outside much with the migraines.
Yeah.
Bless you both. Bless you, Ian. Bless you. So, all the things you're doing together, bringing the team. So bless you in your work, and I'll jump on another call later on. Thank you
All
much.
right.
Have a good
Thanks, William.
Nice meeting you,
Hey,
William.
keep
You
those
too.
SEC shorts coming. They're funny.
Okay.
All right, take care.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, very good. Very cool. All right. Anybody else have any questions? Did any of that discussion bring up anything for anyone? Bob, I do want to express appreciation for the emails you've been sending me with amazing resources. If I have your permission to share those with everybody, that's awesome.
Oh yeah, you're welcome. One thing that came up listening today for me was just the idea of focusing on where's that barrier where you break off a negotiation or communication and where you continue to engage is just as a an interesting challenge. That's a challenge that's worthwhile
Yeah.
considering and figuring out what you want to do with that.
Yeah. No, it is. And it's, I'm not going to pretend there's a bright line, right? There's no bright line where it's not like a stoplight where it's red and green. Yeah, there's there's a lot of times where you're in that gray area and you're not sure, and you just have to make a judgment call on what's best for your own mental health, quite frankly. And sometimes you make the judgment that I should disengage, and sometimes you think, you know what, there's still something productive, and even though it's frustrating for me, I'm going to keep going. But we do talk about like actual signs to look for on whether you're equipped to have the discussion, whether the other person's equipped to have the discussion. There's a whole call we're going to have on that, and going through examples together.
Yeah, I'd be curious to understand to what degree you're going to be addressing the skills of someone who knows how to really develop deep rapport with your opposition or resistance or whatever you want to call it, and use some tools to facilitate that making that connection, even though your adversary is resistant.
Yeah, well, that rapport's the thing, and it always comes down to the fundamental values. And I don't know, Heather, do you have you're good at
I was going to
rapport.
say it also
Yeah.
comes down to active listening.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Right.
being able to let the other person know that you've heard them, because if you realize that it's not going to go forward, sometimes it's helpful whether it's an adversarial relationship or even just familial, making sure that person knows you understand where they're coming from. And that goes a long way when you're trying to negotiate anything, really. And so, always kind of going back to some of those active listening skills, repeating, there's also body movement stuff, how you speak sometimes, the pauses you take, the gestures you make, that mirroring that we can do sometimes helps when you're in
creating
person.
a insight friendly space in which they can discover their own values, perhaps.
Absolutely.
Asking them good questions that will lead them to to discover what may be important to them that they didn't even realize was important initially.
Exactly. Perfect.
Yeah, I love that insight friendly space. And we are actually in the course going to be teaching a mode of active listening called street epistemology, which is kind of a new thing invented in the last few years.
Could you repeat that term again?
It's called street epistemology.
Oh, okay.
And it's how basically it was invented by folks who wanted to engage with strangers on all kinds of topics, from religions to UFOs to whatever. But the whole point of street epistemology is it's a mode of asking questions and listening and being compassionate that draws them out, right? Instead of you trying to hammer them and convince them, it draws them out to make their own conclusions. So we're going to be talking about that quite a bit in the course.
So if I run into a schizophrenic sitting on the sidewalk drinking a cup of blood, sit down and ask him, "Can I have some?"
Yeah.
Only if you want some.
Yeah, only if you want some. Yeah. Nobody's going to make you. Yeah. Uh-huh.
No, I mean, as a therapist, I have worked with schizophrenics, and there was always an interesting one that I was in an internship, and she had a delusion that she was pregnant, and obviously they had already sent her to the doctors. Test came back negative, and nobody could shake her reality. They kept confronting her with facts. And one point I just sat down with her. Now, mind you, I was an intern and this was 20 plus years ago. But I just sat down with her and asked her to tell me about, her pregnancy, and, tell me all about it. And she said that she was pregnant with 3 babies. And then as we kept talking, it turns out that she actually did have 3 miscarriages. And so her mind was just stuck in some of that regret, grief, and she never really processed through it. And that's why her delusion was she is still pregnant. So people's, minds have a way of either working through or not. And, by just holding the space and really trying to understand without judgment, sometimes they will share what's really going on.
Yeah, so even in the case of a delusion or schizophrenia,
yeah,
there's always something there. Now, again,
there is.
That's a separate question from whether it's worth it for you to engage. Now, Heather gets paid to engage with that.
Or I got credits.
Yeah, but I get paid to engage with that, even with my legal clients as an attorney, right? Some of them come up with what I would call delusional ideas about how the law works in their business. And so I get paid to engage, and I can't just, I can't always just say, "Hey, you're wrong," or they'll go off and do the wrong thing anyway.
But I don't want to pay taxes.
Well, me neither. And yet I do. Lots of things I don't want to do, right? What do we tell our children, right? Sometimes you have to do things you don't want to do. Yeah. Does that help at all, Bob?
Yeah. I just well, I just would love to know exactly how you're going to go about that area.
That's the magic.
That's the magic. That's the magic that you have to get in the course and see and do it in community, right?
Speaking of that, do you have a syllabus or sort of an outline of what the major?
I do. I lost my link there. Hang on, let me pull it up. I can kind of show you at least I can show you what the pre-recorded videos look like. The Q&A calls, here we go. There's 5 modules of pre-recorded videos, but we have 10 weeks of Q&A. So we actually go through things in more in-depth on the Q&A, and the Q&A is recorded because I know not everybody's going to make it every week, and that's totally okay. So let me do a screen share here. So you will at least see what the pre-recorded modules look like. And the Q&A roughly tracks it, but I also do alter the Q&A every week based on what the community's needs are. If the community doesn't want to talk about X next week, I'm not going to talk about X next week. I'm not going to force it on anybody. We'll talk about Y. We'll talk about what they want to talk about. So the Q&A calls roughly track this, right? So module 1 in the pre-recorded videos, we talk about some foundations of how to think critically and compassionately and with values, right? So we talk about, again, here you go. You get to see the difference between truth and belief, some basic critical thinking principles, the power of I don't know, which is what we talked about with the jelly beans, and admitting our ignorance actually sets us up to gain knowledge, not lack it. Definitional terms, and then there are worksheets and cheat sheets, and you'll get the recordings of the calls. Module 2, we start to actually talk about the structure of arguments together. Now, this is where I give you a hammer, but I don't just give you the hammer and then tell you to go around bashing everything, right? Because you guys know what was a hammer. It's a tool, right? You can use a hammer to build things, build something beautiful. You could always also use a hammer to destroy things if you want it, right? So here we talk about the hammer, the power of different kind of symbology and argument structures, conditional premise, disjunctive and conjunctive premises, right? There are lots of different argument structures in basic critical thinking and logic that we go to. Module 3 is when we get into the basic mistakes that all of us are making. Right. And there are literally dozens and dozens of different well-defined critical thinking or logical fallacies. I pick out a handful of the most common ones that all of us make all the time. Even after you learn them, you find yourself making them. And I break them down into categories. So mistakes relating to relevance, assumptions, bad faith. And then we do a whole separate module on the straw man, because there's a whole subset of fallacies related to that. These are all just thinking mistakes that we all make. And so only by learning what these thinking mistakes are can we stop making those thinking mistakes, and we can start recognizing them in others. Module 4, we start then figuring out, okay, great, I have all these hammers. Now, how do I use them? So let's talking about our values and staying in alignment and being who we want to be. And we're actually in the Q&A calls, we're going to start talking about values and alignment much sooner than this, because I want us right from the beginning on the Q&A to be very focused on common values and being in alignment with who we want to be in the world. Then identifying our own biases and blind spots, because we literally all have them. If you think you don't have a blind spot, that's your blind spot right there. In poker, I don't know if there's any poker players on here, but when you go to the poker table, hey, Heather, when you go to the poker table and you don't know who the fish is, who's the fish?
I am.
Yeah. See, there you go. So when you go to a table and you think, I have no blind spots, guess who has a blind spot, right? And then how to guard ourselves against poor quality evidence and poor reasoning. Then we get into a lot of our communication and listening and how to apply that in the real world. So those are kind of all you get 20 pre-recorded videos you can go through at your own pace. But we really start off in the Q&A calls, because there's 5 modules, but there's 10 weeks of Q&As. So we kind of get to spend a couple weeks on everything, and we really start emphasizing values and communication and listening right from the start in the program. So Bob, you can kind of see what we have on there.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's 20 videos. It's not 20 hours worth of videos. They range anywhere from 10 minutes to half an hour each. They're in bite-sized chunks. I try to, no pun intended, they're organized in a logical manner, so they follow from one to the next. But again, the videos are self-paced. You get ongoing lifetime access to the videos. You'll get recordings of the Q&A calls. And then there's usually bonus calls where we go through the worksheets together as well. So that way everybody can get a little extra practice. So
Has anybody tried out the I don't know in real life with any significant others, work colleagues, anything like that?
I've tried it out in reverse
Mm,
with clients by
mm,
suggesting when they say, I don't know, they suggest, well, I know you don't know, but if you did, what might it be?
mm-hmm.
Right. I do that with mine too.
Yep. Right. So framed in the hypothetical because you are recognizing that they don't know and that that's okay. You know, and you're recognizing that maybe they could figure it out. Oh, Brian, I love it. Yeah, with your wife. Honey, do I say I don't know a lot?
Not as much as you think you do.
Not as much as I should. Yeah. Right. See, and then look, I literally teach that. I teach people how to say I don't know. I run whole classes on it, and I'm still not where I should be because this is you know, a lot of us work in, you know, healing and stuff. Do you ever wake up one morning and you're healed and you're done? I don't need a doctor, I don't need a therapist, I don't need a healer. I mean, that's
I don't need to go to the gym.
I don't need to go to the gym. No, healing is a lifelong journey. Well, learning to think more critically and compassionately based on your values. You don't wake up one morning and think, "Oh, shoot, I've learned it. I'm good now." It is a lifelong journey. Everything I teach are things I am still personally working on. I'm very conscious about it. I catch myself not saying I don't know when I should. She catches me more. I catches myself making logical fallacies that I should know better. Again, Heather catches me more, right? That's,
Sorry, I'm a pain in the ass.
you're a pain in my ass, honey. So it's good. That's all right. You're my pain in the ass. So it's worth
There's
it.
been many days when I go to bed having beat myself up all day for all the things I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah. No, I've done the same, right? And as a child in Western society, is I don't know an acceptable thing to say, right? Or is it beaten out of us? So it's totally normal to feel that way. And we work a lot on, you know, instead of beating ourselves up with I don't know, trying to draw power from it. What if it's great that I don't know, right? Because if I know something, then I know it. I'm stuck. That's it. That's the direction. It's really hard to change direction. But if we don't know, then I can go anywhere from there. I get to examine the arguments and evidence and look at the world and check my intuition and make up my mind. Good job, Brian. That cracks me up. Yeah, Branislav. So Branislav is our resident philosopher, educated in the former Yugoslavia. Dialogues of Socrates. That's a great way. You know, in fact, we talk about Socratic dialogue in the course as well. You know, Socratic dialogue is one way to listen and communicate. So we talk about Socratic dialogue. And then we talk about street epistemology and kind of the differences there. But Bob, yeah, I can tell that these thinking mechanisms are important with you because you know, I love the resources you send me. I'll be sharing them with everyone. That's awesome. So
It will be.
Brian, you signed up for the household price, right? You've got your daughter joining with you?
Yeah, she's not here right now, but she's going to be doing the recordings.
All right.
It's a matter of if it fits in with her work and university schedule.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good.
That's great. Bob, what were you going to say? Sorry.
I lost it now.
It'll come back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. And Alice, I believe you're in Eastern Europe right now, right? With the Peace Corps?
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Yeah, former Yugoslavian country.
Hmm.
So I'm just curious, about Branislav. When you say former Yugoslavian, that's all.
Mhm.
I personally, just from today, I think the Q&A sessions would be great place for conversation. So I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, good. Yeah. I mean, the pre-recorded content, I think is very informative and useful, but it's you really absorb so much more when we get together and just talk about this. A lot of the Q&As, I generally on all the Q&As, I will have content ready to go in case nobody wants to talk. If nobody wants to talk, I'll just present content. But I find most of the time that people have things they want to talk about. So let's talk about what you want to talk about and let's go through it together and let's figure it out together as a community. It's so much easier to learn this stuff when we do it together. So yeah, Alice, as much as you can join, that'd be great. All right, very good. I don't see any specific questions on Facebook either.
Hmm.
But hopefully some folks will. I can see that some folks are watching. So hello to everyone who's watching on Facebook. I appreciate it. Good to see you guys. Branislav, do you have any? I understand, Branislav, you can't always be on camera right now. Do you have any questions?
Yes, that's what you always can count about me about questions.
Yeah, that's
About
right.
answers, I'm not sure.
I figured you'd have some. Yeah, or comments or anything, any value you want to add, Branislav. That's why I love it.
I like it. I'm personally, involved very much in something called Braver Angels. It's a national movement, very similar but how to say, exclusively for political purposes,
Mm-hmm.
putting and I love what you and Heather are doing. That's great. I was on this meeting of Braver Angels in Kenosha, Wisconsin. It's an annual meeting, and that was around 1,000 people and all colors. I am, for statement, I'm independent. I don't declare myself of any of two major parties. And that was one of my best 5 days, spending, talking with people, and I see that your guys are putting, very similar, similar techniques, and that's great. I think whoever take these courses, it's going to be very beneficial. About former Yugoslavia, I just want to answer that question. I am born in Yugoslavia, and for me, it's always Yugoslavia. It means South Slavs, and it's not Eastern Europe. It's Balkans, and very specific historically, and never ever been the part of Eastern Europe, what was mostly Soviet Union domination. And we from Yugoslavia were always proud very much. They were not part of Warsaw Pact, what was Soviet Union, or NATO Pact, what was, we know what it is. And we were part of something called non-alignment movement, what in their peak had 134 countries. But I learned from very young age to communicate with people I disagree on a lot of issues, and that's why led me later to study philosophy. And I really love what you guys doing, and unfortunately I'm now not in a situation to participate anything actively, but I would love to hear from time to time. And also I have talking about with stranger or talking with people under stress or whatever. Yeah, I have to notify everybody that my wife is also psychotherapist and that I got personal training at home. And she's also discernment counselor, that's for couples, could be extend to relationship, two people are decided they're gonna improve their relationship or they will finish in divorce, what is not Ian's specialty, he's not divorce lawyer, and I found, the name of the person who started this is Bill Doherty, he also started the Bravers Angels, with several judges and politicians, senators, about 5 years ago. It's a lot we can learn, not only about politics, but really about everyday life and relationship through process what Ian and Heather are suggesting here. What to say? Actually, I gave more answers than asked questions,
No,
Sorry,
no,
today
that's great.
I'm not on my best.
That's great, Branislav. I'm always glad when you show up, and I'm still glad you're able to make it to some of the second Saturdays. So I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd love to, if you want to make a connection with that organization, do an introduction, I'd be happy to talk to them. We can probably do some common work together and do some great work together. So, if you wanted to make an introduction, we'd be open to that. That would be awesome. But no, thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you for being on. And we are always sending our love on your healing journey. And you know what it's like to be married to a psychotherapist. You get the education whether you want it or not. Yeah.
I do not have comments.
Yeah.
But all best, guys, and we'll be in touch definitely.
All right. Thanks, Branislav. Any other questions from anyone today? Doesn't look like we have anyone else hopping on, so we might be able to wrap it up, and that way we have a nice recording we can send out. Anything else we can help with for anyone? All right. Very good, Bob. Good. Thank you for hopping on. So the link's in the chat. You'll get a link in the email as well. If you
Sure.
want to check it out. All right. And
Okay, great.
all right. Thanks, Bob. Hope to see you soon. And
Mhm.
Brian and Alice, so that our welcome call is tomorrow. So Brian and Alice, hopefully see you guys tomorrow. And
And I'll
thanks
be
so much,
there.
everyone. All right.
Bye.
Bye.